Greetings, Facebook Live. Ben Axelrod Matt Florjancic coming to you live from WKYC Studios shortly after the Cleveland Browns 27-13 loss to the New England Patriots. I think the Browns, it was a 13-point spread. This was, definitely a plausible outcome, but I think the way that it came about, I guess let's just start in the first quarter and jump into it, Matt. I can't imagine in NFL history too many times that an offense has turned the ball over on three consecutive offensive snaps.
Yeah, same old mistakes come back to haunt this team, and three consecutive drives, on three consecutive plays result in turnovers. One that was a scoop and score, a fumble recovery for a touchdown, and then Baker Mayfield's interception set up the Patriots on another short field when they cashed in on another touchdown. You're not good enough to spot the Bengals 14 points.
Yeah.
You spot the Patriots 14 points, you're sledding uphill the rest of the way.
Yeah, and that's, was kind of the story of the game is, the Browns, after that disaster of a first quarter, for all intents and purposes, after falling behind 17-0, hung with the Patriots, played pretty well. But as you put yourself in that big of a hole, you leave yourself with no margin for error. And over the course of three quarters of an NFL game, you're going to have some margin for error, or you're going to have some errors.
Yeah.
And we certainly saw that, especially in the fourth quarter. The sequence everybody's talking about, just about a little more than 6 minutes left in the game. Browns facing a 4th and 11 after a 3-and-out. Freddie Kitchens sends the punt team out, then takes a false start and goes for it. Baker Mayfield takes a sack. They turn it over. Freddie Kitchens confirmed that he intentionally took the penalty there because there was some miscommunication about whether they were punting or whether they were leaving the offense on the field. And he said they had a timeout. He didn't want to use the timeout. I've never seen that in an NFL game. A coach, I've seen coaches take penalties to give themselves more room for punts or for advantageous things to do with the clock. I've never seen it where a coach intentionally takes himself from 4th and 11, already 4th and long, to 4th and longer at such a critical point in the game.
Yeah, it's a little bit of a head scratcher there. Not exactly sure what possible good he thought was going to come out of that. But as we saw, nothing good came out of it because they couldn't protect Baker, and he was running for his life trying to find somebody open down the field, and it just wasn't there for him. It was a very bizarre set of circumstances, and the press conference was even more bizarre when the media asked Freddie about the play, the sequence. He said, "I don't intentionally coach penalties," but then I told him to take the fall. Like, it made no sense. And to me, he seems like we're starting to get to the point now where we can see that he might be in a little bit over his head.
Yeah, I think, and go back to the start of the game, even before the three consecutive turnovers, they come out in a rainstorm that they knew was coming, that's been on the forecast now for days. And I think it took 2 or 3 series before Nick Chubb even got his first touch. Just no cohesion of, what's this team's offensive identity? What's its defensive identity? What does this team have that it can hang its hat on here heading into week 9 of the NFL season?
Theoretically, it should be Nick Chubb running the ball. It should be the strength of the running game should be the strength of this offense. The offensive line isn't, and we talked pregame about this, isn't quite as bad as everybody would like to make them out to be. They're not by any means all Pro Bowlers, but they're not bad, and they are very good at run blocking. You have a very talented Pro Bowl level back in Nick Chubb, and to go that far into the game without him getting a touch is really, it's maddening for fans, and it's for us. It's just kind of like we're looking, going, "What are you doing? Like, why does it take so long to get him?" Like, it would seem like it would be an easy thing to do to say, "Here, turn the ball and hand the ball off to 24."
Well, I think even in and of itself, I mean that makes sense. And then you factor in, like I said, the weather conditions. You factor in this is a team coming off a bye. It's not like this is a team like the Patriots coming off a short week. And I don't even think there would be an excuse for it then. But they've had 2 weeks to game plan for this and to figure out how they're going to approach it. And you'd figure they could script some plays. And if they did script them, they scripted the wrong ones.
If this is the plan coming out of a 2-week break, I am deeply concerned about the direction that this team is headed. I think we can put to bed the whole easy second half of the schedule thing, because with every mounting loss, they're starting to put themselves in position where they have to run the table.
Yeah.
And you don't want to be in that position. In December, it's one thing when you have to win 3 games to get in. It's another when you have to start winning in early November just to hope to compete for a spot. I mean, it's starting to get to that point of critical mass where, one more loss and we might be looking at some offseason changes.
Yeah, and people, have talked about this back end of the schedule coming out of this New England game as if it's automatic. It's time for the automatic wins now. Looking at this schedule, they go to Denver next week, and Denver's been bad this year, but they have the same record as the Browns.
And they played with Indianapolis pretty tough today, and Denver is not an easy place to play. The Browns have won once there since 1991. Yeah.
It's a veteran team, and this is a. I don't think the Browns are going to be favored in that game. It might be a pick 'em. After that, they host Buffalo. Buffalo's been one of the most pleasant surprises in the NFL. Then they host the Steelers on Thursday Night Football. For everything that's gone wrong with the Steelers, they beat the Bengals tomorrow on Monday Night Football. They have a better record than the Browns. Then you take on the Dolphins, and then the Steelers again, then the Bengals, then the Cardinals, and then Baltimore and Cincinnati. And Miami and Cincinnati, those are 2 of the worst teams in the NFL right now, and those are the 2 worst teams in the NFL right now, and you have a combined 3 games left against them, but you're sitting at just 2-5 right now. I mean, this is not a team that is 3 wins away from doing anything. You're 3 wins away right now from tying the Baltimore Ravens in the AFC North, and right now, big picture, the Ravens are 5-2, you're 2-5, Steelers are 2-4 heading into Monday night against the Dolphins. This is an uphill battle and then some for the Browns as far as breaking their playoff drought.
Yeah, they have 5 games within the AFC North Division, which gives you a little bit of hope that maybe they can turn things around. 1 more game against the Ravens, 2 each against the Steelers and Bengals, but the Bills are a tough out.
Yeah.
They've proven to be much tougher than anybody gave them credit for this year, myself included. Denver is a tough out, especially on the road. They've historically been very good at Mile High. I wouldn't even put past Miami to be competitive in this game because they may look at that as, hey, this could be our last chance to get a W and not go 0-16. And honestly, this is going to be tough, and especially when the Browns make self-inflicted mistakes with the fumbles, with the bizarre interception that I'm really not going to hang on Baker Mayfield because he was just executing the play, but it looked like we forgot a blocking assignment on that one.
Yeah.
And then you can't commit 13 penalties for 85 lost yards. If the Browns were somehow out of the league lead in committed penalties because of the bye week, I think they reclaimed that top spot in the league.
A safe assumption.
It's maddening because it's the same mistakes week after week and the same comments from Freddie week after week. Well, we're not panicking because we know what went wrong. We know the mistakes. How about this? How about saying, okay, instead of saying we know what they are, let's say we are going to fix them and get it done. That's what they need to do right now, and that's what they have shown an absolute inability to do since this slide started.
Yeah, and that's that was Freddie's big talking point emphatically in the post-game press conference was it's penalties and it's turnovers, and yet here we are heading into Week 9 and 2 problems that have been problems dating back to that blowout loss to the Titans in Week 1. Neither of them's been fixed. Just looking at the stats here, Baker Mayfield, 20 for 31, 194 yards, 1 touchdown, 1 interception. I think probably he played good enough for them to win this game with what Nick Chubb had 131 yards on the ground. But the expectation for Baker Mayfield was not good enough this season.
Yeah, no question Baker has struggled. He has looked out of sync. The offense as a whole has looked completely lost, and I think they take their cues from their quarterback. And when they see Baker struggling, I think the rest of the guys in the huddle are kind of looking around like, okay, if he's really struggling, what are we going to do here? They look completely lost on offense today. 90% of the time there were missed throws, there were drop passes, there were Antonio Callaway committing one of at least 2 offensive pass interference penalties. Yeah. Rashard Higgins not getting into the game till the third quarter. It just nothing seems to be to give you hope that this thing is going to turn around offensively. Yeah, Nick Chubb had 131 yards, but he's going to be the first to tell you that means absolutely nothing because he had 2 fumbles today. And I will give Nick Chubb credit in that regard because he does take responsibility, and he is probably the hardest working player at practice, but you need 52 other guys that want to improve like Nick Chubb if you're going to get this thing going in the right direction.
Yeah, looking at the receiving yards, Jarvis Landry, 5 catches, 65 yards. Odell Beckham Jr., 5 catches, 52 yards off of 7 targets. Their inability to get Odell Beckham Jr. involved in this offense, he had a big drop, I know, on the back shoulder in the game, but 7 targets. It's jarring how little they've been able to get him involved. Entering this game, even I know he had his lowest total through the first six games of a season, had 29 receptions for 436 yards, still only 1 touchdown on the season. This was the big splashy acquisition. This was what raised the bar from 7-8-1 from a year ago to playoffs or bust for this team. And so far, the Odell Beckham Jr. experience, it's been 7 games now, so still a lot of time left, but I think it'd be tough to call it anything short of a massive disappointment.
Yeah, and I think it's a disappointment on a personal level for Odell, too. Look, the 7 targets out of 31 throws, it's less than 25%.
It's not enough.
You have to find ways to get him involved. You have to find ways for Jarvis Landry to catch more than 5 passes in a game. And you have to take advantage. You have to play off of the running game. I get it, but it is maddening for a lot of reasons because you see the talent, and you see the skill level, and you're like,
it's there.
You watch them in practice, and they make ridiculous play after ridiculous play, they being Odell and Jarvis, and then it comes to Sunday, and everything falls apart. It really does go by the boards, and I don't know what it is, if it's a chemistry issue, if it's just a play calling issue.
Yeah.
It could be a combination of a lot of things.
Yeah, and I think, especially going against a team like New England that has made a point of taking Odell out of the game, a line like that maybe wasn't unexpected, but you've got to find a way to counter it, and they just had no way to counter it. If you're going to talk about the positives, too, for this season, Nick Chubb is obviously far and away number one. I think Olivier Vernon played really well today, and he's come on lately. After that, though, Myles Garrett's having another Pro Bowl season, although he was a little quieter today. Just the positives for this team, what this team can hang its hat on offensively, defensively. Special teams have been fine enough, but not a lot there.
Yeah, you try to look for bright spots, and like you said, nothing really jumps off the page at you. Anything that jumps off the page is alarming in terms of passes and targets to the star wide receivers. The amount of times Nick Chubb doesn't have a first quarter carry.
Yeah,
I think those are all alarming, and that we're halfway through the season essentially now through 7 games, and the problems that we've seen early and often this year just continue to not only rear their ugly heads, but manifest themselves into worse problems as the season goes on.
Yep. Just looking through the comments here, and then we'll wrap this up. Kind of a common theme. Fire Freddie Kitchens. Freddie needs to go now. That can't cut it. Hugh Jackson had a better record last year through 7 games than Freddie Kitchens. Explain that. Please fire Freddie Kitchens. That's the sentiment of the fan base. I think it'd be tough to argue otherwise. I think if you listen to Sports Talk Radio on either station tomorrow, you'll hear similar sentiments from at least the callers. The honeymoon period with Freddie Kitchens is over. I think that much is clear. It probably was over maybe after the 4th and 9 draw play against the Rams.
I definitely think that was the start of the slide for Freddie.
That call in the 4th quarter, the intentional penalty is really a sticking point, something people are pointing to as indefensible and a fireable offense. Are we at a point where we're on head coach watch here?
I would say yes if we had a later bye week. Mm-hmm. If our bye week was in week 12 or week 11, then I would say yes. But because it came early, only after 6 games, I don't know that you can make that decision now.
Yeah.
I think if you were going to make it, you would have made it, on the bye when you had a week and a half to prepare for the Patriots. But which is much like they did last year when they made the change. Actually, they made it 2 weeks before the bye week, and still played pretty well going into a game against a loaded Kansas City Chiefs team. But I don't get the sense that they're ready to pull the trigger quite yet, knowing how often they've been quick to make changes as an organization being under the Haslams. But man, it's getting harder and harder to say he still deserves to be the guy making the decisions. At least, maybe you walk in there tomorrow and say, okay, Monken's going to be handling the offense.
Right.
You're going to be the game manager. There's no double duty here. He handles one, you handle the other. And if Freddie doesn't like that, maybe then they decide to make the change.
Yeah, I don't. These decisions don't happen in a vacuum, and I think you have to look back to the firing of Rob Chudzinski after the 2013 season, and how much flack the Haslam family caught for pulling the trigger on a head coach after one season.
11 months on the job.
Yeah, to do that now to a head coach after 7 games. Would have to be fairly unprecedented. I can't remember another. That would have to be the quickest firing of a head coach in NFL history.
I'd be hard pressed to find one.
And you put that on your resume. It brings back that toxic environment. That toxic. The stories will leak out of Berea shortly enough after that, and then it becomes who do you hire to replace Freddie Kitchens? And I don't think that's the way the Browns should necessarily approach that, because they do have Baker Mayfield, they do have Odell Beckham Jr., they do have Myles Garrett. This job is should be one of the most attractive jobs in the NFL from a young talent standpoint.
We all said that last year, though, too. And
no
the
question
candidate
about
pool was not quite what you thought it was going to be either.
Yeah.
We thought for sure, maybe we could get Mike McCarthy, going back to his connection with John Dorsey from the Green Bay Packers, and that was a bizarre situation that didn't work out. And then they just kept going down the line, and then the finalists were a guy who was an offensive coordinator for 8 games versus a guy who is an analytics guy who had maybe a few more play calling games under his belt.
Yeah, I think the counter to that would be, I don't know how wide of a net this franchise cast. It seemed like they were determined not to lose Freddie Kitchens, because I think they thought they caught lightning in a bottle with Freddie's connection with Baker Mayfield. Maybe they gave Baker Mayfield too much input into this coaching decision. But it didn't really seem like a full-out, let's go get Lincoln Riley, let's go get Josh McDaniels, let's go after these big names. They seem to cast a pretty small net. But to fire a head coach after 7 games, fairly unprecedented. I think you made your bed, you kind of lay in it at this point.
Yeah, I think you have to ride it out at this point. Good, bad, or indifferent. And you knew what you were getting. You were hiring a rookie head coach that had called plays for only 8 games. So you knew going in. You can't say this comes as a surprise. You had to know, and if you didn't, you shouldn't be making the decisions. But looking at this now, you pretty much have to ride it out and just go with it till it's over.
I think the one justification would be is if you feel like this season is salvageable, and you feel like there's still a playoff run to be made. At 2-5 though, and with the Ravens at 5-2, I don't know if the upside is there.
Yeah, I don't know if you can make that case anymore. Maybe if you win today, then we're probably not talking about making a coaching change as it is. Or it's just you really have to just ride it out now.
Yep.
You made your choice. You have to live with it. And maybe in January we make a different call. But right now, you're in the situation because this is the decision you made.
2-5, 9 games left. Realistically,
8-8's looking pretty good.
Yeah, 8. I mean, realistically, 8-8 would be. I mean, man, you think about it, they'd have to go 8-1 from here to just get to 10 wins, and that's probably not going to be enough to win this division.
Not the way the Ravens have started this year. You would be basically hoping to get to 10 wins and get one of the 2 wild card spots. And the AFC is so off balance this year that it seems like there's going to be a logjam of teams that you're going to have to knock off and compete against for those spots. And Yeah, 8-1 over the last 9 weeks. I mean, I know you're getting.
That's a big stretch.
I know you're getting Kareem Hunt back in a couple of weeks.
But I've seen that point made. Kareem Hunt only adds to the one area of this team that's been any good.
Right. Well, it's another playmaker that they're going to have to figure out a way to get the ball to, and they can't figure it out.
Carries away from Nick Chubb.
Taking carries away from Nick Chubb, taking pass attempts away from Dontrell Hood. It's taking.
That might be a positive.
He's pretty decent catching the ball out of the backfield. I won't completely throw him under the bus, but it adds another element that the Browns are seemingly ill-prepared for at this point. Another playmaker that they have to figure out a way to get the ball to when they can't figure out how to get the ball to Odell and Jarvis and Nick Chubb as it is.
Yeah, I'm not going to argue with that. That is going to do it for us, though, tonight. We will have you covered on the Browns' latest defeat all throughout the night on WKYC.com and all through the week heading into their big game against Denver next week. Cleveland Browns sitting at 2-5. For Matt Florjancic, I'm Ben Axelrod. Thanks for watching on Facebook Live.